Hello, human peoples. You're listening to the podcast network of Gamefully Unemployed. To support us and gain access to great exclusive podcasts like Fox Mulder is a Maniac, Tom and Jeff Watch Batman, Star Trek The Next Futurama, and our latest show, Spiel Boys, head over to patreon.com/gamefullyunemployed. We do game streaming, movie nights with our patrons every Friday night, and you can even commission your own podcast about anything you want. Literally anything, within reason, and we have to do it. You are quite frankly out of excuses not to go visit patreon.com/gamefullyunemployed. That's patreon.com/GAMEFULLY unemployed, which is spelled like it sounds.
Who the hell am I?
I'm a construction worker.
I have to go to the bathroom. I said, be right back.
I'm a cop, you idiot!
Pasta.
Oh, I'm Detective John Kimball.
Who is your daddy?
Answer the question!
And what does he do?
Put that cookie down! Now!
No,
Oh,
Junior.
it's a brand new Into the Universe. Into the Mystery Universe.
It's a brand
folks.
new universe.
It's a new universe.
It's a
You
universe.
said it.
I said it.
Welcome everybody. I'm one of your hosts, Dave.
We've crossed that line. I'm your other host, Tom.
And if you don't know, this is a podcast about Arnold Schwarzenegger films. I don't know if we need to explain it. We've done like 20 of these, and they've been fucking just going by real. It goes down real smooth because we're just watching Arnold Schwarzenegger films.
Yeah, like
chronological
the
order.
glistening musculature of an Austrian bodybuilder.
Exactly.
It goes down smooth.
And we're going through the plot of the movie. Then we're going to talk about Arnold, the actor. It's called Technically Not Arnold. We're going through all the versions of Arnold that's out there in the multiverse. And so we're going to talk about his performance in the movie. We're going to go through the best side characters, and then we're going to judge the most Arnold character, and then we're going to rate the movie. In this case, I propose we rate it a rating between 0 and 1 stolen Emma Thompson eggs. I don't know if that scans.
I think that's a good one. Yeah, I think it's between 0. I was going to suggest Franks in the Blanket, but 0 and 1 stolen Emma Thompson eggs, I think.
All right. I don't know if people realize this.
It's kind of a pass-fail. It's kind of a pass-fail in that way.
It's a pass-fail, yeah. We're covering 1994's Junior.
Yes.
Junior. This is probably when it all started going downhill, right?
No. Arnold had, because this is 1994.
Right.
Same year as True Lies.
Yeah.
Arnold had a couple of more hits after this. Really, Eraser is kind of the beginning of the end for it. Like, Eraser was his last big hit, but it was kind of a softer hit.
Right.
And then Batman and Robin was the year after that, which was, a hit, but, it's also Batman and Robin.
Right.
Kind of hard to bounce back from that. And from that point on, he's it's stuff like the Sixth Day and End of Days and Collateral Damage. It's pretty bleak. But Junior is still in the sweet spot for Arnold. We're still in Arnold's prime in 1994.
We're on the peak, and we're starting to slope downhill, I would say.
Yes, we have reached the peak. Yeah,
I do not believe this movie was received well. It certainly hasn't stood up to the test of time.
No, there was a lot of hullabaloo around it because it was the reteaming of Schwarzenegger with Ivan Reitman and Danny DeVito. It was their follow-up to Twins.
And it's got Pamela Reed in there for good measure.
Right, from Kindergarten Cop.
Yeah. So it is that trilogy. I think Ivan Reitman said it was his favorite, but not he said like it might not be the best, but it's my favorite of these. So yeah, it's a big one. It's Arnold Schwarzenegger getting pregnant. That's the bit. It's also 2 hours long.
It is.
Which right away I'm like, you can make that a 90-minute premise, right? Because a lot of the movie is just sort of bits. It's Arnold. Look how Arnold is pregnant. Bits.
Yeah, for about the first half. This movie is a fascinating movie in a lot of ways.
It is. Can I share one behind-the-scenes thing I read?
I would love to. I would love for you to do that.
Apparently, the original ending of this film was the baby being aborted. And, that's hilarious to me because, yes, that's the more realistic thing. But what are we doing? Where it's like why would that be the instinct?
Why would that be the ending you would write?
Yeah. That's wild. And it's like, yeah, I get it. Like, most likely, if a baby was,
but it's the
born into someone who doesn't have a womb, like, yeah,
it's the whole point of his character, of Arnold's character, of Hess. He's like, no, I'm going to keep it's my baby. Like,
yeah.
The thing that I noticed this watch through, I wonder if this movie is very transcoded, or at least it seems like it is. I just wanted to say real quick that I've seen this movie maybe 3 or 4 times. I had watched it a couple of years ago, relatively recently, for a Collider piece, and it didn't really resonate with me at all. But watching it again this time, I started to notice that aspect of it. And I was watching with Marina, and she was commenting on it. It's the movie is like it's Hess, who is Arnold, is this very rigid, very serious, kind of unhappy. You could get a sense of, because he's so serious. There doesn't seem to be much joy in his life. He's just a total scientist doing this project. And then once he becomes pregnant as part of this project, his character changes. And at first it's, for laughs. It's like, oh, look at what we're watching Arnold be pregnant. So watching Arnold have weird cravings like the Francs in the blanket. That's kind of, that's goof 'em ups.
Right.
But after a while, they stop making fun of him, and they never really make fun of him too hard. But like, once Act 3 rolls around, the movie is no longer about how ridiculous this is, and it's more just like treating Arnold like a pregnant person.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Like humanizing.
And then
yes.
and then when he has the baby, like, it being pregnant changes him as a person. It makes him into a happier person who is more considerate of his partner, Danny DeVito, and of Emma Thompson, and just in general. And then at the end of the movie, once he's had the baby, he remains this person. So it's like he transitioned into a new person because of this experience, and he's happier because of it. And the movie doesn't shit on him, and it really doesn't, as much as you might expect for like a mid-90s movie about a man getting pregnant. It doesn't make him foolish as in the way that you might think. Like,
this could have been worse.
A
lot worse.
There are, obviously there's, it's funny that he's wearing a wig to get checked into this woman's clinic. It's 1994, but like, after the initial meeting, when Danny DeVito checks him into the clinic, nobody comments on it ever again. And the movie doesn't position him as being ridiculous, even though he's wearing drag in these sequences. Like, they're just treating him like a pregnant person. And all the other women at the facility are treating him that way. And that like really struck me this time watching it. I was like, this is kind of a little progressive in that way, in the way that I'm reading it anyway, which
here's my take on that. I think it's accidentally.
I'm sure it might. Yeah, sure.
I think. Well,
sure, it's
this
probably
is what
accidentally.
it is. This movie is dated only in the sense that anybody with a womb now, trans men can get pregnant and have babies.
Of course,
right?
Yeah.
I think this movie was relying on the idea of that's funny. However, I don't think the joke is, what if it's funny that a man is pregnant? It's funny and weird that it's Arnold. The way pregnant Sonic is weird. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's like a pregnant Sonic effect where it's like, it's not it's like, we're gonna play up that it's Arnold.
It's playing with his Arnold. It's playing with his image again, like the other 2 films in this trilogy.
Yes, but like you saying, what the movie, I don't know. I mean, I don't want to speak for Ivan Reitman. Maybe he knew back then. It wasn't on people's radar, so I have to assume it's more likely he wasn't, because the big theme of this movie is kind of women go through pain all the time that men ignore. Like, that seems like a big part of it, right? That's is like a big part of it. Emma Thompson constantly talks about it, of like, women casually go through so much worse pain than men, and men are the ones who think they're macho, an Arnold Schwarzenegger type. So I think the core thing was, what if we take Arnold Schwarzenegger, a macho man, and put him through baseline pregnancy problems, and you realize, like, oh yeah, it's a nightmare. And so it's about like growing that empathy. And I think like when he goes to the women's clinic, like, it's showing that they already have that empathy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so you're right, is that there's a thing in his character, and we'll talk about it in the next segment, where it's getting a baby like fulfills him in a way that he didn't realize. Mm-hmm. And so it does ultimately, feel like it's a little more progressive for its time than they even knew. You know what I mean?
Right. Like, I feel like if we treat it, again, we can't know what Ivan Reitman was thinking. Maybe he was aware of this and it was in his mind. Or even the writers, the performers, people involved. I'm sure it crossed some people's minds, but it's just from like I think maybe it's just by the way of he's our main character and we're supposed to be kind and empathetic to him, and it's about him learning empathy and becoming not learning empathy necessarily, but becoming like you said, becoming fulfilled in a way. Before it was all about his work, and he's a very serious, not affectionate man. He's not sentimental at all in the beginning of the film. So I think, and then there's an additional layer that maybe lends credit to it being accidental, which is with the exception of the dinner reception where they do the dance, where Arnold and Emma Thompson dance. Emma Thompson is kind of more masculine coded for the movie. Like she's always wearing a long sleeve shirt and pants, pretty much. She's always walking with her shoulders kind of rolled forward and her hands stuffed in her pockets. Did you notice that? Like they really lean into tomboyishness for her character in this movie.
And in the women's clinic, he asks about that. He says, like, I'm afraid I can't be like the mother this baby needs. And they say, like, they come in all shapes and sizes. Mm-hmm. So again, it's like it's handling stuff. And again, I think it's probably inelegant because they don't realize it. But there's even a little bit of turfness where Emma Thompson says, like, you're taking this away from us. You can't have this too, which felt very turf. But again, it's Arnold Schwarzenegger isn't a trans character. And I'm sure trans people watching this movie probably have a way more nuanced opinion on it.
Of course. Yeah. I'd be very curious to hear those those opinions of the movie.
But this movie could have very easily just
it just struck me in a way that's like, oh, this movie's not being mean in the way that you might expect it to.
Right. It does, I would argue, play with, or like I'm not a scienceman.
I mean, it's I'm not even worried about the science is completely. I don't think.
We'll talk about that. No. But I was going to say, like, it's sort of like he takes estrogen. And it was like, I don't know how much of his actions are like, you know what I mean? Like they start confusing being pregnant with also acting feminine. Does that make sense? Where like
they absolutely conflate the two. That's true.
Exactly. So it's like, I almost wish there was a version where he was still like, I'm serious, tough Arnold, but I'm dealing with being pregnant in my serious, tough Arnold.
Well, I read it more of like, he starts to bond with the movie kind of presents it as they do mention the estrogen, but they don't really hit it that hard. I think they mention it once.
Right.
It's more, they spend way more time pointing out that he's developing a bond with the baby.
Yes, that's true.
Like he wants to have the baby. He wants to be the baby's parent.
Right.
So yeah, but that's true. They do sort of conflate the two. Absolutely.
Again, it's not very delicate because
it's a fucking film. It's 1994. Like,
did you notice the subtle moment where we see Arnold Schwarzenegger's sperm?
I mean, in the microscope. You mean
he's
when
holding it?
Oh yeah,
I know it's not his. I mean, that would be amazing if it was. Yeah. There was just a moment where he walks out holding his own sperm, and I'm like, oh, good. I'm seeing his jizz.
It's a punchline. It's Danny DeVito grabs the beaker and says, "Nice job."
Yeah, exactly.
Because it's like
it's just weird to see.
It's all slopped full of superhuman Austrian spunk.
Yep, and you see his piss and jizz. You hear about his erection.
It's a pregnancy movie, man. You're gonna get all the nitty gritty.
I'm glad we talked about this because I also think this movie is weird in a lot of places. We'll talk about that with the character stuff, but like Emma Thompson's character, I have notes.
Oh man, she's just a whirlwind of studio notes circa mid 90s. She's the clumsy she's the clumsy hot woman. That's what
which is what Julianne Moore did in Evolution.
Right.
Yeah.
It's just such a trope to do, and and they're both funny at playing it. I think Emma Thompson's actually really funny at
Julianne Moore famously did it because they
didn't give her anything to do. I remember that we talked about that. But yeah, there are some scenes where it's like at the dance where they have kind of their only like romantic moment together, where they first see each other as possible romantic pursuits. Emma Thompson spends most of that scene with a huge chunk of toilet paper just cemented to her high heel, and she cannot get it off.
She's Mr. Bean in this.
Yeah,
It's
she's Mr. Bean. It's like over the top.
So, like, for people who haven't seen Junior, the plot is, I'm sure people can figure it out. Because this is the thing, like, I agree with you about the message being surprisingly more heartfelt and more, like, nuanced than you think. I'd say
I think the movie's more empathetic
points,
on a whole than I expected.
Yes. The plot points, however, and the character choices, I would argue, are fairly unhinged.
Oh, yeah, everybody's insane in this movie.
Yeah. It's just interesting.
Particularly fucking Frank Langella.
Yes. We have to kind of unweave those two concepts when talking about this movie.
That's true.
I'm glad we talked about it. Because the movie has to move
it's like
fast.
pulling apart two cats that are fighting.
Yeah.
No. Two spiders.
Yes. So many legs. Arnold's pregnant by the first act, which
pretty
is
quickly.
They have to move really fast, and they lean into it like he has to. He's literally Arnold's about to take off on an airplane, and Danny DeVito is convincing him, and I like that. But the idea is they're two fertility scientists who get shut down, and because I forget funding for their drug or whatever.
They want to move from primate testing to human testing for this. It's a miracle drug that I forget what it's supposed to do, but like it like eliminates miscarriages. It's a miracle drug.
Yeah, and Danny DeVito says we should test it on you, Arnold. Arnold goes for it. They have to yada yada it a bit, and I'm like, man, I feel like there could be a whole movie about convincing this guy to do this. We see his sperm, we see his piss, and so Danny DeVito steals the egg from Emma Thompson, who is the scientist who is coming in to take their
laboratory space.
Yeah,
and she's doing like IV. I forget what it is, in vitro fertilization. She's also a fertility doctor, but she's doing a different type of science.
Right. Their boss is reveling in it, but she feels bad that she took their space.
Their boss, Frank Langella. It's difficult to determine why exactly he's reveling in their failure, but he is.
He is. God damn it. So Danny DeVito sneaks in, steals one of the eggs. And then Arnold, when he's putting in the egg, Arnold's like, "Where'd you get the egg, by the way?" And I'm like, "Man, you should really ask that question earlier." But whatever. And so the idea is he only goes through the first term, and then they're going to terminate. Like that's the agreed upon thing. But after that first term, he secretly keeps taking the fertility drug, because he decides to keep the baby. That's his big decision. I believe that's probably the halfway point. I don't know.
It's kind of like mid-act 2, yeah.
Yeah. He starts getting pregnant. They make up that he has a disease, which is one of those things you could only do before the internet.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a real early 90s thing.
Yeah. Arnold goes to Danny DeVito's house to, like, be in his big, sexy bed, his ex-wife bed.
Yeah.
Danny DeVito is divorced. His ex is
Pamela Reed.
Pamela Reed.
Yeah, it's Arnold's partner from Kindergarten Cop.
Yeah. So they have this whole subplot with him and her kind of getting back together, and her also delivering a baby, which plays into the end.
Also pregnant with the child of Aerosmith's personal trainer.
Yes.
Which is a running gag throughout it's a lot of bits. I mean, it's not really any different from an Apatow movie, if you think about it. There's lots of like side bits and tangents that don't have anything to do with the movie.
Again, a 2-hour movie. I'm like, we can skip some
probably
of this.
cut some of this out.
Yeah. So they make up the disease, and then him and Emma Thompson start kind of having a romantic relationship. She says, "I know you from before," and she seems like spiritually connected to him. I thought it would be hilarious if it turned out that they were siblings. That would have been perfect. But it's almost like it's like implying that there's some sort of connection that's like spiritual or they're fated. But they have to fall in love because it's going to turn out, people can probably assume, it was her egg. She froze her own egg, so Arnold is pregnant with her kid. Mm-hmm. So it's very convenient then that they also like each other and they fall in love.
Mm-hmm.
it takes way more time than I thought for her to learn that. I had originally like, I'd only seen this once. I thought they told her pretty quickly, and that's why they fell in love. Like, it started at first that she was mad, and then slowly, but they don't do it that way.
No.
And so
she's not even really that mad when she finds out.
I want to talk about that. It's fucking, that's the biggest like problem of the movie, I think. Because they start, basically we do a bunch of bits where he's like crying and watching a commercial.
Right, yeah.
He was daddy's little girl.
She was daddy's little girl, yeah, watching the...
I remembered that so vividly from this movie.
Yeah, the Francs and the Blankets.
Yeah. And we start doing bits where it's kind of funny that he's Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yeah.
He's filled with estrogen. He's pregnant. But then, as you say, it gets a lot more serious. Around the time I think they start revealing to the women around them that he's also pregnant. I love when he says, "I'm going to be a mama too," with this big Arnold Schwarzenegger smile. It shows his stomach.
Yeah.
And she faints immediately. Yeah. I like her performance where she's just like, "You're touching him. Why are you touching him?"
Yeah, I mean, it's a 90s movie, so some light homophobia.
I mean, well, what's interesting, she doesn't say it in disgust so much as it's like, it's more like
what's this? Yeah.
Yeah, they're all kind of like they're up to something. Again, the movie.
It's a little farcical. That's true. Yeah, it's not I wouldn't call it a farce, but there are moments of farce, and this is certainly one of them when she comes downstairs and sees Danny DeVito like listening to Arnold's tummy because the baby's kicking. She's like, "What you doing?"
That's what I mean, where it's like it's leaning a little bit into Pregnant Sonic, which is that it's simply a combination of images. Like pregnant Arnold Schwarzenegger with Danny DeVito. Just in Twins alone, they dealt with that. He's short, he's big.
Right. And they're twins. Isn't that weird?
Yeah. And now let's make one of them pregnant, and the other one is acting like the father a lot of the time. And he's like, "Why are you staying out late and stuff?" Like they basically were like, we want like a couple where one of them's pregnant, but it's Arnold Schwarzenegger and Danny DeVito.
Yeah.
And we think that's weird and funny. And then he confesses that she stole his egg. She stole her egg. And then, like, this movie should end with the cops, right? Like, escorting. Because they're doing crime after crime. That's the other thing. Yeah.
There's a lot of, like, morally flexible science going on.
Right.
A lot of theft.
It's like it's not the ends, it's the means here, where it's like it's like the big picture. And the movie does a good job where most people don't seem, even the Frank Langella, he just wants in on it at the end.
Yeah, he wants a part of the huge discovery and yeah.
No one is like, this is wrong. It's more that everybody's upset about how they went about it through deceit.
Yeah.
So everybody starts finding out, including Frank Langella. And it's like a mini rampage. They have to run. They Mrs. Doubtfire him. They dress up Arnold Schwarzenegger like a lady and bring him to a women's clinic for pregnant women. Which it's fraud, right? Again, more crimes, but And so they do a series of bits there too. And this is when, like you said, it starts getting more sweet.
Right. This is when the movie entirely stops making fun of him. Like it was only lightly doing it before, and at this point it completely stops. After he gets, after the introductory interview scene where he's like, where Danny DeVito's like, she was an Olympic athlete that took too much steroids, so that's why she's huge. After that scene, it's like no more jokes about it, no more jokes about his appearance or anything like that, and it's just it's. I didn't notice it the first couple of times I watched it.
It's a slow, because the way they make fun of him before this is still, look how this muscle tough guy can't handle it.
Yeah, look at
kind of the same with the kindergarten cop.
Yeah,
but then they start doing emotional things.
He's in a situation where his tough guyness doesn't do anything for him. It's not it doesn't help him at all.
He can't handle the morning sickness. He sounds like a fucking like dragon when he pukes. He can't handle the emotions. He can't handle all the aches and pains. And then it becomes, you realize when he's like, am I ugly? Like he starts getting like, they do the pregnant thing, right? Where it's like, oh, I'm a cow. But then you realize like he's genuinely sad about that. And that's when it starts, like when it starts just showing empathy for him. The movie itself does, where it's like, no, we were making fun of like, look at this muscle man, he can't handle it. But we can't like brush that off because that trivializes that pain, right?
Right.
So like
there was a Farrelly Brothers way to do this movie.
And they didn't do that.
And they didn't do that. Like I kept thinking of Stuck on You.
Right.
Not that it's a one-to-one at all, but like
no.
It's like, let's make a broad comedy, I guess, about a medical condition. Even that's not accurate, but like, do you know what I'm getting at? Like,
yeah. Did you notice that the song is "I've Got You Under My Skin" throughout? And I was like, why are you making this like an alien thing?
Oh, I didn't notice that.
Yeah, but yeah, I know what you mean. Which is there is an inelegant, like more grotesque, more like look at this freak way of doing it, right?
Gross out, sophomoric. Really lowest common denominator, offensive, mean-spirited. This movie's not mean-spirited, really.
Right, and I think a lot of people, myself included, hadn't seen this movie in a while and just sort of assumed that's probably what it was.
I was expecting it to be, yeah. Fully expecting it to be.
And that's the point of the women's clinic, is it's to then bring it all down and go like, what he's feeling, all these women are feeling, everybody's different. And the answer is to be supportive of each other.
He's just part of the group from that point on. Like they all accept him. It's just this montage, and it's a dramatic montage. It's not a comedic montage. They're just earnestly showing him going through doing the things in this clinic with the other women and bonding with them and bonding more with his kid. It's like a really sweet montage.
Right. Because it's ultimately
and there's not a single joke in it.
Right. And like taking aside like the more modern trans stuff, like it's more just about empathy.
Yeah,
like,
it's more just about being a human.
Yeah.
Like being a good human and empathetic, like you said.
Yeah, and empathizing everybody's pains and experiences and what they're in their bodies and what they're going through.
Yeah.
And understanding we're all unique and that's it. And so like they show that he's grown at the end where like him and Emma Thompson he has the baby, spoilers. He has a C-section. And then they're like on the beach and she's pregnant now and he's being very empathetic towards her. And it's like, oh, he learned. They're one big happy family. Danny DeVito is now with his ex again and he's raising the Aerosmith kid. And they suggest we should get Danny DeVito pregnant. And I demand a sequel.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's it. That's basically the movie, right? It is a very weird movie. I understand why probably audiences were like
it's
confused. But it's a very interesting movie to look through today's lens. Yeah. It's two layers. It's that what they do is unhinged, but the core concept isn't. And the movie knows that. And it almost like doesn't want us to think that. It's just it's this idea of like their methods are very much Frankenstein, right? Digging up bodies and doing crimes.
Right. But Danny DeVito is presented as being
monster.
Very unscrupulous.
Yeah. So their methods are really terrible, but the end result, the movie doesn't say like, and this is bad. Which is why it can't end with a fucking abortion.
Yeah, that's crazy that they ever thought that was the ending.
Right.
Like it's so obviously not the ending.
Right.
Like he's got to give birth. Yeah. What are you talking about?
Right. That's what everybody's waiting
that's
for.
The point. Like that's the obvious climax. Yeah, that's what everybody's waiting for.
Yeah. So I don't know if this was made in good faith or not, but yeah, looking back at it now, it's just like what a surprisingly nuanced film.
I remember seeing it at the time. I saw this in the theater when it came out.
I think I did too. Yeah.
And it just kind of passed through me. It was just like, oh, that didn't like. I just remember thinking it was weird. Yeah, and that's the only really memory I had of it was that it was weird. It wasn't really that funny.
No, it's not that funny,
and it's not that funny, but it's very sweet.
Yeah,
in a lot of spaces.
Do you want to talk about?
It's like gently funny in some spaces. Like,
oh, for sure.
You know,
I mean, those weird dreams he has.
we're about to get to the next section, so yeah.
Yeah, I mean they're leaning on the fact that it's Arnold.
They're leaning on the performances a lot, yeah.
A lot, yeah. So let's talk about Arnold in our first segment. Technically not Arnold. I want to start with what his character's job is. He's a scientist, a fertility scientist, which is just right away an ask for the audience, I would argue.
He's canonically Austrian in this movie.
Right. Which I appreciate.
I think they've done that in all three of the Ivan Reitman comedies, right? Because in Twins, he's like the product of a Nazi doctor or some shit.
Yes.
And in Kindergarten Cop,
that.
they have him like speak German, and like he mutters German to himself, and they have Pamela Reed pretend to be his German sister.
Right.
So it's not necessary, but it is always funny to me. We've mentioned this before, but in movies like Jingle All the Way, when he's just like some dude named Harry who sells mattresses.
Yeah.
No, he's not.
No, he's absolutely not. No way he is. Like, there's a part where he has to give techno babble, and I was like, I don't believe you, Arnold.
Yeah.
But I know what they're going for, and ultimately I think it works, which is that he's serious.
He's very serious. It works well
he's
as
a straight man.
It works well as a scientist, actually. It really does. Like,
that's what
his like sort of stone cold badass that doesn't really speak much, man, a few words. That like action hero demeanor, it transfers really easy to like a scientist with a stick up his ass that nobody likes.
Right. What I think I needed though was like I needed backstory or something, because they throw
us right in. We don't know anything about any of these characters.
Right. And there's a few things we have to accept. One, that he's a scientist who also, like, they show him working out first thing in the morning. He's a man of routine, which is important.
He's rigid. Which totally works. And those two things didn't feel contradictory to me. Like the fact that he's a uptight scientist who also just obsessively works out. I was like, no, that makes sense. Like, he's a rigid dude that has a schedule that he doesn't deviate from.
Right. Yeah, and so that I think that works.
He's obsessive.
Yes. The turn that I'm like the turn that's like the really, like, I think this is the hardest thing to write into the movie, in my opinion, is that they really want to make him a guy who doesn't want babies. He has multiple baby nightmares. Multiple. Despite that, he works in fertility. So that's one where I'm like, I feel like I need more of a backstory to understand where he's coming from, like his views on babies. They inject a few nightmares to show like he doesn't like babies or want to have babies, but he works in fertility. But like the idea is he's the scientist, right? So you could have worked something in where he's like, I don't like babies. I'm fascinated by the the fucking organs and shit. I'm just a weirdo. But they have to take that, and then they have to make him want a baby on his own at the halfway point to decide, I'm going to keep this baby. And that's juggling a lot of information. It's making us have to believe he's a scientist, and he's Arnold Schwarzenegger, that he's a fertility scientist, and that he's a fertility scientist who hates babies, who then wants a baby.
Yeah. I think, honestly, the hardest thing there is the fertility. Like, why is he a fertility scientist?
Yeah.
The rest of it just kind of, for me, doesn't need that much explanation. I think the dreams are less about hating babies. But the first dream he has is he finds he's in a library and he hears a baby crying, and there's just a lone baby on the desk. And he's like, is this somebody's baby? There must be a mother. There must be a mother. But he's like afraid. Like
it's an anxiety dream. Yeah.
Right. He doesn't know what to do. Yeah. It's I don't have my homework or something. It's I think that's more just like fun and games foreshadowing.
Right. I've actually had similar dreams. Like, that's a common anxiety dream, is you find a baby.
And I don't know what to do with it. And of course he'd be thinking about babies, but why is he a fertility doctor in the first place? Especially since he's a German. That's not a good connection.
That's why I'm like, I wanted to know. Yeah, I wanted to know what got him into this, to get a little more of that backstory.
But to have him, I don't think you need. Actually, I honestly think the less we know about him is better for the Act 2 thing to happen, for his character arc to accept the baby, because as much of not a blank slate, but as
I think we needed a line.
Maybe something, yeah. Because to me, it just naturally made sense, but that's largely because it's hard for me to tell at this point whether I'm viewing the character as Hess or whether I'm just looking at Arnold as Arnold. Because I can picture Arnold wanting a child because he's Arnold. He has several children.
There's a moment. All right.
Yeah.
So this moment to me seems like when they're pasting the two concepts together. He gets the morning sickness. He starts acting, he starts feeling the pregnancy, and then they cut to him reading maternity magazines. And I think it was as simple as I don't know, maybe I missed it, of like Danny DeVito saying like, "Hey man, you got to get familiar with this stuff. You're going to go through it." Or have him in like Danny DeVito's office and he just needs something to read and picks it up, because that's the moment. His decision to start researching maternity magazines, like what to expect when you're expecting, to me implies that's like, why would he do that? If it's just a scientific thing, he's not going to read a maternity magazine. Unless he's reading specifically about like what's going to happen in the first term to his body. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So they show him doing that, and it's not a plot hole. There's I'm just thinking of like, how did he get from those 2 points? And
I think it's just as his emotions start to develop, and as he starts to develop the bond with the kid, that's what makes him make the decision. And I guess that I don't know how much of the movie's work I'm doing for it there, to be perfectly honest.
He doesn't have too much of a bond up until the point where he decides. It didn't feel like it, but it's not a huge problem because, again, there's a million reasons, and I think
a lot of that's internal
is
too,
making it work.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. But yeah, I may be doing a lot of the movie's work for it. I
don't know,
but I think it's his performance that pushes it over the line. Like you said, it's because the way his behavior changes that you don't question it as much, because he's a completely different person almost by that point.
And what they really do with his performance and what he does, and it makes for an interesting and I'd say a pretty good performance. Earnest. He's earnest.
He's completely earnest.
Meaning that they're selling the comedy on the idea that Arnold is earnest, which isn't the first time they do this.
No, it's Twins. They did the same thing in Twins.
They do it in Kindergarten Cop to some extent too.
Yeah.
Honestly, like even True Lies, yeah, but they were all bad. Like he whenever, or like, I don't like you, you've caused me nothing but pain, to in Last Action Hero, they know it's funny, and all he has to do is be very earnest and serious. So for this, like, he was daddy's little girl and now he's just giving her away, they just have him play it off as he's sad.
Right.
He's sad
he's just
about the
genuinely weeping over this Kodak commercial.
Yeah. And so, like, I don't know, it seems like he makes this transition fast. Like, I'm still like, because they show this idea that he's a very serious man who seems to be obsessed with his work. He's not attached to Danny DeVito, right? He just gets on that plane. He's like, I'm going home.
Yeah.
He's not good at selling things.
Just his work partner. That's it.
So the part where he's just like, I'm pregnant and alone, I feel so isolated, that also to me, like, that pinged me, because I was like, you're not a social guy, are you? You didn't seem like you were very social. Like, I think that part, they wanted to do a very common pregnancy trope, right?
Right.
Which is like, they're staying home, they don't get to go out and do stuff, but it didn't feel in line with his character as much.
Right. Not everybody's pregnancy is like that.
Right. But they wanted to hit all the tropes, I guess.
Yeah. I think they just wanted to hit the major tropes.
Yeah. So he performs that stuff well. That was the biggest part where I was like, I don't know if his character would do that. Obviously, it's not Arnold's decision there.
Yeah.
I guess they're doing some work where it's like, as he gets more attached to the baby, he's also getting more attached to Danny DeVito and other people. So
yeah, he starts forming bonds with everybody. Like, he starts forming a bond with Danny DeVito, he starts forming a bond with Pamela Reed, and he starts bonding with Emma Thompson.
Right.
All in Act 2.
It's interesting because I don't think he was isolated. People were coming to visit him and stuff. I wonder if it's more like Cabin Fever would have made it work better. I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know.
It's nitpicking.
Yeah. They do paint the pregnancy with a broad brush for obvious reasons.
Yeah, they're trying to hit the tropes.
Mm-hmm.
And then The part that I think of as like probably in this segment, the part that like really stands out to me is: do you think young Arnold, when he was making Hercules in New York, when he was making The Terminator, do you think like when he started I bet he started taking acting classes and stuff, right?
Presumably.
Do you think anybody would have told him then would he have believed, listen, you're going to have to perform the miracle of childbirth in earnest in a film? Because that's the part that really shines for me, is that they have the C-section film sequence, and they have to show his face, and he has to treat it like, I'm giving birth. And I don't think Arnold Schwarzenegger ever thought he would need to have like those tools as an actor. And for that reason, he does well. That's all to say that when this birthing scene, he looks genuinely like scared about the baby and nervous. And
it just looks like a birthing scene.
Exactly.
With Arnold on the bed. Yeah. It is kind
of incredible.
It is, you're right. It is kind of, I didn't even think about it.
Right, because again, he knows how to kill a man. He knows how to shoot a gun. This is not something he probably ever thought he'd have to know how to do. I'm imagining him like watching pregnancy videos and birth videos.
And really
and,
studying the tape.
Notes.
Yeah. Honing his craft. Maybe he did.
Yeah. Maybe he did. By the way, what do you think about? I mentioned it a little bit because he says like something about wanting to see a psychic later. Is there like that weird fate thing where she's like, I feel like I know you? Like, why do you think they did that?
I think it's because he is pregnant with her egg, with her baby. I think that's why they have that in there.
I don't believe that, but okay. They can believe that. I get what they're going for.
It's garbage, but it's movie garbage. It's pretty
exactly.
standard movie garbage.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Should we talk about Definitely Not Arnold?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, these are our best side characters, starting of course with Danny DeVito, who should be in handcuffs.
Oh yeah,
by the end of this, he's also not someone. I don't think of him as a fertility doctor, and he plays it like a scumbag.
Yeah,
like,
he plays it basically like his character in Twins.
Yeah, he's like, I got $300,000 in this drug, and he's all like, yes, gonna make money. And I'm like, is this what a fertility doctor thinks about? He's like a sleazeball fertility doctor who steals a random egg like he's Dennis Nedry, fucking steals Emma Thompson's egg and like is a con man. Like,
I guess they must have them. They must have scumbag fertility doctors. I'm sure.
Right.
I'm sure.
The dynamic, they do a very good job in the first when they're talking to the drug lords, and they like deny it. He like is the one who sells it. You know, Schwarzenegger's the serious guy. And so they show like, oh, he's the guy who's good at selling the work.
Yeah.
That's his asset. But like at no point like do I believe that he would know anything about fertility science, more so than Schwarzenegger. He's just unhinged.
There's like one scene where he seems reasonable, where Pamela Reed comes to him and is like, I want you to be my doctor. And he's like, that's really not a great idea.
Oh, yeah.
I should probably get you somebody else in the practice to do that.
He looks like a doctor. Yeah,
he kind of does.
I mean, later he like goes off on her when she's worried her baby is sick. And I was like, that's why you shouldn't be her doctor.
Yeah.
Because he's just like, yeah.
He's got too many personal emotions tied up into it.
Right. At one point, he leaves his patients in the waiting room with a giant Austrian man who he tells them thinks he's pregnant. And that was one of those moments where, like, I don't know, if I was in that fertility clinic waiting room, I'd be like, maybe I'll get another doctor.
It's time to find a new doctor. Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, because I don't know who this man is, but he can kill me if he wants to.
Right. There's just this gigantic man, and my doctor just told me that he is delusional.
Yeah. But Danny DeVito, I mean, no one said he's a good actor. He's playing a real Danny DeVito type. They just take Danny DeVito and they paste him into these jobs. And I love it. He's just Danny DeVito.
Yeah, he's great.
Yeah. But now he's just stealing Emma Thompson's eggs.
He's stealing Emma Thompson's eggs, trying to push this drug, trying to pull one over on Frank Langella, trying to get back together with his wife, also throwing darts at a poster at Aerosmith.
Yes.
There's so many multitudes to Danny DeVito in this film.
Yeah. There's some more maniacs.
Oh, yeah.
Again, Frank Langella, who's just Dracula the whole time. He's just lurking.
They even named him Baines.
Yeah. Noah Baines. He has a bow tie.
Yeah, he wears a bow tie the whole time. He's as tall as Arnold, which is unnerving. Yes. Frank Langella is a tall man. But he's on the board, and he's ostensibly like their colleague and friend. But at the beginning of the movie, he votes as the head of the board. He votes with the rest of them to defund their project. And he's just sort of the bad guy from then on out. Like, he is invested in their failure for reasons that are never made clear, because he's sinister.
Yeah, he's the weakest link in terms of character, where I am generic, sinister bad guy who ends up thwarting himself in a very bad guy way.
A very mild way that's not even really that embarrassing. It's embarrassing, but
it feels like a classic bad guy thing. Like, I feel like this has happened a few times, right? Where the villains or the good guys are up to something, and the bad guy goes, "I'll expose you," and then looks like a fool.
Right.
Trying
to expose them. We'll unmask him to reveal my rival all along. And he pulls the mask off, and it's a golden retriever.
Exactly, like it's the angry dean.
Yeah.
And he tells the press, and for some reason tells the press, he really calls his shot, and they all gather together.
Really put the cart before the horse on this
right. Yeah, they really did. And then they do a switcheroo with Pamela Reed, and then shout out to the press guy who just goes, "It's just a woman."
I love that guy. He was going to be a separate character on my list, but
he's on my list too.
It's just a woman.
He's so sad. That felt like a guy who wants to have a baby. Like, that was what it felt like, as a guy who heard this news and was personally invested in it.
Hell yeah.
And that he was so excited.
It was a seahorse, actually.
Yeah. Yeah. And he's so pissed that they have a pregnant woman.
He just wanted to see pregnant Arnold, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, who doesn't?
He had the tone of voice of a kid who you told he was going to see an elephant, and now he's not going to see it.
He's so excited.
Yeah. Show him like a toy elephant instead.
On that subject, Pamela Reed, I just want to point out that she just breaks into houses, specifically Danny DeVito's house.
She's
low
walks
key
in.
A nightmare.
Yeah, she's great. She's also just a Pamela Reed character. She's the same character she was in Kindergarten Cop.
100%. She's great in this.
Yeah, same exact character.
Yeah.
Real quick, I just wanted to, just while we're still on Pamela Reed, like their marriage, like her and Danny DeVito's marriage, because they're currently divorced, but they're still obviously friendly with each other, and then of course they end up getting back together. So it's like, it doesn't even really seem like they broke up. It seems like they saw that movie Hall Pass and were like, let's give that a shot. There doesn't really seem to be much friction in their relationship, except for the fact that she got pregnant by somebody else. That's it.
It feels like, because he says like this was her room, so it's like they clearly went in through stages where it's like they love each other, but they're not in the same room.
He even says that, like, he's like, yeah, it's my ex-wife's room. It's got good taste. Yeah. And Arnold's like, you had separate rooms, and he says there are many stops on the road to divorce.
Right, and it feels like they felt like they've been, like, their attitude when they almost feel like they've been divorced for a while and are used to their friendship. It almost feels like they have a kid together, right? Where they're like, we have to really cordial,
they're really comfortable with each other, but not together. I don't know. They're two maniacs that clearly belong together. So
it works.
They end up together by the end.
Huge shout out to my favorite maniac, the man who is at the most rock bottom in this film, which is Inside Man Janitor. The guy who Frank Langella hired to spy on the fertility clinic.
Oh,
who
right.
calls him and goes, yeah, they're here right now. That man is fascinating to me. Because that is a janitor that has been bribed by a fertility doctor to spy on another fertility doctor.
One of the major figures at that university.
Yeah. That's just...
Like Frank Langella is like the head of this board and shit. Like, he's a big wheel there.
Yeah. He's like, yeah, I see him now. You want me to kill some babies for you? Like, he just feels like...
Right, like he pulls a plastic bag out. You want me to slaughter somebody, Mr. Baines?
Yeah.
Excuse me, Dr. Baines.
He's a henchman. There's a henchman.
Yeah, he's just a henchman. He's like fucking Jasper from 101 Dalmatians.
Yeah. What the fuck what is that? This
He's
movie isn't supposed to have henchmen.
Yeah, he's just a goon.
Yeah. He's just a goon.
Like if you spit goon into ChatGPT, it would spit you out a picture of this dude.
Right. He does not belong in the movie.
The Sorting Hat
funny.
would have thrown him in Goon House.
Population, just him.
This fucking guy.
Yeah. Fucking goon.
We got an umbrella holder full of crowbars by the door for all your gooning needs.
Flying at a crowbar. Oh, I want that. I want that wizard house. Goon wizard house.
And every one of them just dressed in like a tweed watch cap.
Yeah. Oh God, I can picture it now.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is this man.
Just mid-century British thugs. Henchmen. So he has a bona fide henchman working at this hospital.
He does. And it's wild. It's low-key the wildest.
I love it when a
character.
henchman shows up. It's so good.
It's so good. It must be a great job. It must pay well.
Slide a low-key slide a henchman into your dramatic film, and that's a guaranteed way to make your review, my review of your film, increase by 1/2 star at least.
100%. Yeah.
Didn't care for the film, but I liked that the guy had a henchman.
Yeah, that really spoke to me.
Like Billy Zane bringing David Warner on Titanic.
Right. David Warner henchman. That first of all, that should be reversed.
Yeah. That's the power dynamic is in the wrong order.
Absolutely. Speaking of British people, Emma Thompson, Mr. Bean, also little Hugh Grant, a little befuddled.
Very Hugh Grant, yeah.
She is, as we talked about, she is a problem. Like she's like a toddler. Like she kills people, it feels like in this.
Yeah,
like
she's like the drunk Tasmanian devil.
Right, she clotheslines a rollerblader. He takes her to eat lobster, and it's like, that's going to be some Frank Drebin shit, right? And it is.
Oh yeah, she's gonna fucking kill the Queen of England or something.
Right. And like she casually admits she was in love with her portly cousin, which I was like, huh, all right. But of course, the big thing is she really rolls with the punches with the man who is pregnated with her stolen egg. Mm-hmm. He never. Did you notice Arnold? I don't think ever says I didn't know he stole it.
I don't remember if he does or not.
I was listening.
Let's hope he made that clear at some point.
At some point, because that's the thing is like she accepts it. I know they do the thing where they do the romantic comedy beat where there's a montage where she's alone and she's not answering his calls and he's saying I'm sorry, right?
Yeah.
But he impregnated himself with her stolen egg. And I feel like that's just not going to cut it, that sequence. You know what I mean?
It's a boundary that you've violated for sure.
Yeah, like despite her wanting, like I get wanting to be involved with the baby once someone is, like if someone stole my sperm and was like, I'm having your baby, I'd be like, cool, I'd love to meet the baby. Nothing more than that.
Yeah, like you got it though. You got it.
It's your baby.
Yeah.
And you should thank me every day that you don't go to jail. And so like the fact that this develops into a relationship based off, it's going to be like, Mom, how did you meet Dad? And she's like, well, funny story. He stole my eggs in my lab and impregnated himself. Like that's just, I just don't see, I can't make that work in my brain.
They probably are going to use puppets when they tell the kids. So it'll make it go down a little easier.
She doesn't just accept
muscular puppets.
Oh yeah. Lots of fucking fabrics.
Yeah, turgid fabric.
Right. It's not just that she says, I forgive you. It's I forgive you and let's have sex while you're pregnant.
That's
and then I'm gonna
right. She just shows
your tummy after.
That's right.
And it was like, this is weird.
She shows up at the women's clinic and it's just like, well, we gotta fuck.
Yeah, she's like, well, if
I'm
you're
not
having
gonna,
my baby,
you're not gonna have a baby of mine without us having sex. So we're gonna go upstairs and fuck right now. And Arnold is like 9 months pregnant at this point.
Yes. There's so many reasons why I feel like this wouldn't happen. And then again, she kisses his tummy, to which I feel like, is this like secretly something she wanted? Like, is there some, like, is this just a thing? She, like, secretly is like, I want to get that man pregnant. I wish there was a way to get that man pregnant.
the pregnant Sonic. That's all I can think of.
Exactly. But, it's very pregnant Sonic.
To be clear, I was pointing out the fact that he's 9 months pregnant, not like, oh, why would she want to sleep with him? I don't think you're supposed to have sex when you're that pregnant.
Yeah,
right?
But either way, it's still very, it's like, yeah, I don't know if you're supposed to. Yeah, it's not about looks, but again, the whole thing, it's very pregnant Sonic because I know who Emma Thompson is. I know who Arnold Schwarzenegger is. I know what they normally do and what they normally play. And I'm watching her kiss his pregnant stomach after they've slept together in like a cottage room. And I'm like, how did we get here? This is such a strange combination of images. And then on top of the fact that why would she forgive this guy for this? There's no way. It is such a violation. Yeah,
I don't know. It's a huge violation, but they're all whacked out scientists. She had filled an incubator with her own eggs.
That's true. She is
for the purposes of her studies. Yeah.
I think this is why my biggest note for this movie is, frankly, I wish they told her earlier. So
it made her part of it from the begining, yeah. She should have been part of it earlier. I agree with that.
In my head, that's how the movie went. I always thought that.
Me too. Yeah, that's how I tend to remember it, is her getting involved a lot earlier than she does,
and like helping to cover it up and wacky shenanigans.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
And then as she gets the idea, she has a scientific investment, and then she slowly falls in love with Arnold Schwarzenegger. That just goes down so much easier than the order of operations they did. So, like, Ivan Reitman, if you're listening, that's my note for this movie. My big note.
Yeah, I gotta suspect he's probably not listening, but
but
maybe,
maybe. Listen, you don't know.
It's true. I do not know.
Yeah.
I don't claim to know the answers.
You're right. Do you have any other thoughts on Emma Thompson? Thoughts on low-key maniacs of this movie?
No, I think that's everybody. I didn't have any additional maniacs.
Let's get into the most Arnold moment. I have two.
Okay, let's hear it.
You start us off.
I mean, I've been saying it, the Francs and the Blankets.
Oh yeah.
When he just it's I guess I have to explain it. It's when they get to a dinner party. It's where he dances with Emma Thompson and she flings her toilet paper bedazzled chew onto somebody else's table. To much gasps. It's just a real Frank Drebin moment, like you said. But he gets very, very overly excited that they have pigs and blankets as hors d'oeuvres, and he just keeps calling them Francs and Blankets because of his accent.
It's so good.
And it's one of the only things that stuck in my mind from this movie when I saw it for the first time in 1994. It's just, it's a perfect collision of all those things. It's Arnold saying something that is inherently silly, but he's doing it completely earnestly with everything he's got.
Yes.
And he's eating them as he's piling them on his plate and being excited about it. It's just funny.
It is funny.
It's not a super Arnold moment. I guess the most Arnold thing he does is shoves Frank Langella down.
Yeah, we did talk about the light assault where he kill at the beginning when he locks the lab. I was like, is he going to murder everybody? But he's like, a little scary because he's so serious. Yeah, Frank Langella just fucking eats it.
Yeah, it's like it's the time in the movie when they remind you, this is still Arnold.
Yeah. And what's funny is
he's heavily pregnant, but his bicep has remained the same size.
He runs out of the building and then Frank Langella runs out and I was like, oh man, he got right up. Not even a scratch on him.
He's pissed. That's why he sprang back up.
That's why I love he was ready to throw down.
Push down Skeletor.
Yeah. The one I remembered the most was, of course, she was Daddy's little girl, and now he's giving her away. That's the only thing I remembered.
That's a great one.
Big shout out to "My nipples are very sensitive." The line he says, which is it just felt like it's like a one-liner, an Arnold one-liner. Only it's "My nipples are very sensitive," and then I like the follow-up, which is that everybody overhears and starts just like suggesting things like, oh, do you surf? Oh, maybe it's your fabric. I love that nobody is like weirded out by it. It just spins off into a casual conversation about Arnold's nipples. And the point is like he's uncomfortable talking about his own body, and now everybody's talking about it. But just that, Arnold saying, my nipples are very sensitive.
I've got one to add to the pile to that. This might... it's tough. It's tough to pick an Arnold moment. Because I think technically for an Arnold moment, it's pushing Frank Langella down.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's like, wow, you know, that's the him driving a truck through a laundromat with a smile on his face.
Yeah. I'm going with it's not a tumor version of Arnold.
That's true. That's true. Okay, so but it's not a tumor version of Arnold. It's either Franks and the Blankets for me, or it's another Arnold one-liner when they're driving in the back of the car from the women's clinic to deliver the baby. And Arnold's in labor, and Emma Thompson's trying to help him breathe. And the exorcist, she's like, breathe. And he says, stop blowing at me.
Yes. That's a great one. That is a really good one because it's trying to mimic like, you know, what a pregnant lady would like say to her husband in the 90s of like, they always had that scene, right? Where the husband's trying to help her and she's like, stop trying to calm me down.
Right.
But then making it Arnold saying it in that incredulous Arnold voice.
Yeah, but he can't scream at her because it's, you know, it won't come off as funny. So he has to be firm, but like in like a mid-level voice. So it just makes it funnier.
Yeah.
Stop blowing at me. Like he says it with the exasperation of this is the last thing I need right now.
Right. That reminds me again, kindergarten cop. Stop it. Like, yeah.
You eating all these other kids' lunches? Stop it.
Arnold, exasperated Arnold is one of the best Arnolds.
Oh man, it's like Donald Duck.
Yeah. I would love to see, basically Arnold get thwarted by Mickey Mouse. I want that.
It just gets so hot each time.
That'd be so good.
Muttering to himself, wearing a sailor suit.
Oh, we need that. We need that for him.
Just muttering to himself under his breath.
In German.
Yeah.
So what are we rating this? So between 0 and 1 Emma Thompson eggs. Sorry, stolen Emma Thompson.
Dude,
Thompson
I
eggs.
feel like we have to give this thing the whole damn Dennis Nedry embryo case of stolen Emma Thompson eggs.
All right.
The whole
case.
Barbasol can.
Everybody's eggs. Mail your eggs to this movie.
Emma Thompson, Stegosaurus, all the embryos are in there.
Yeah, definitely T-Rex.
T-Rex, Gallimimus. Nedry's got them all.
What a film. I'm not, listen, I'm guessing most people haven't watched it in a while. So go watch it and see for yourself what you think of it. We're but two people. I'm just curious to know what modern eyes looking back at this think about it.
Yeah.
It's a very fascinating film.
Yeah, it's out of its mind. It's very, very odd. But rewatching it, I was honestly pleasantly surprised by a lot of it. And I think it's kind of a sweet movie, but maybe I'm giving the movie too much credit. Please let me know if I am totally fucking wrong.
Yeah, I don't know.
My reads of this film.
I think you're right, but yeah. And you see his sperm. Again, not his sperm.
And his piss.
I like to think it's like a PA's sperm. Like they didn't like get fake sperm.
No.
They like handed the cup to a PA and they're like,
they made somebody come. Arnold needed that to immerse himself in the reality and the truth of the scene.
Right. And I like to think somewhere there's a ex-PA who watches the movie and turns to their friend and goes, that's my cum, you know? That's my cum in this movie. That's what I want.
Yeah, me too. That could have been our cum, Dave.
It could have been our cum if we had born in a different time.
If it had born 10 years earlier, we could have been PAs on Junior.
Yep. Could have come in a cup.
Could have fucking come into a beaker.
For Arnold Schwarzenegger to hold.
Anyway, we should probably wrap this up.
Thank you, Norm from Cheers. Did I say Norm from Cheers at the beginning of this? I don't even remember.
Who knows? It was so long ago.
Norm from Cheers, our Patreon producer who made this happen. Thank you so much for this. If I didn't mention you at the beginning, I'm mentioning you now. Thank you, Norm from Cheers, who this is brought to you by. This was through our Patreon, patreon.com/gamefullyunemployed, GAMEFULLY unemployed. You can get custom podcasts over there. You can get, for just $5 a month, you get access to a bunch of exclusive podcasts. Tom and Jeff Watch Batman, Fox Mulder's a Maniac, Star Trek The Next Futurama, Spiel Boys. Check it out. There's a bunch of stuff. We have a Discord community. We watch movies every Friday night. Lots of activity. Go do it.
Yeah. We also have a store. Head over to gamefullyunemployed.com. You can find a link to our Teespring store. We have all kinds of cool original artwork and designs. You can get on t-shirts, mugs, stickers, posters, all sorts of things. So check that out. Slap your little... Oh, man.
Slap your jizz on it?
There it is.
Slap your jizz and eggs on it?
Slap your...
Your jizz and eggs.
Your jizzy little eggs.
Yeah.
Your jizzy little peepers onto that. Both things my mind originally went to. I was like, I can't say that.
Yep.
But apparently I could, because the first one was jizz. Slap your jizzy little... I was going to say slap your jizzy little peepers, and I was like, I can't say that. And then, Dave, you immediately said slap your jizz. And I was like, well, I guess I can say that.
Yeah, there's no rules here.
There's no rules here.
We're in charge.
Oh, dude, we forgot somebody.
Who do we forget?
We forgot somebody in the movie. This is going to be a real bonus, a real bone con.
Yeah, most people have shut it off.
Most people have turned it off at this point, but you guys, who are still listening, you're going to get a special, extra little spicy little tidbit for Junior. Fucking Christopher Maloney with a full head of hair was one of Danny DeVito's patients. Did you notice?
No.
It's the main featured married couple that are Danny DeVito's patients. There's one guy that is kind of balding and has longish dark hair, and his wife. That's Christopher Maloney. He's in several scenes as one of DeVito's patients. Yeah,
that is so fucking weird.
Just with like a wavy head of hair.
I'm trying to find a picture of him in it. Because I absolutely did not.
Yeah, he shows up like a curse.
Yeah. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, he's in it.
Oh my God. Yeah, he was in it.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God. That's so fucking weird. Why is he in this?
Because he's an actor looking for work.
Yeah.
Ivan Reitman, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Danny DeVito script came across his desk.
And he was like, yeah, I'll do a scene. God, yeah.
He's in a few scenes.
He really was.
He's in like
in
2 or 3.
That's terrifying.
It's not that long before Law and Order. Anyway,
yeah.
There's that little extra tidbit for you guys.
Yep. You're welcome.
Mm-hmm.
And bye.
Bye.
Australia.